In today's video, we are going to be looking at all the different kinds of numbers that you absolutely need to be familiar with. We can split these numbers into two broad groups. The first group includes all rational numbers, which cover things like whole numbers, which are also called integers, parts of numbers which we write as fractions, and numbers that are written with decimal points that either stop after a certain number of digits or repeat in a pattern forever. The second group consists of irrational numbers, which are numbers that go on endlessly after the decimal point without ever showing a repeating pattern. These often include things like roots of numbers that are not perfect squares. So let's go through these types one by one and take a close look at clear and simple examples for each of them. We'll begin with integers, which is just another way of saying whole numbers. These are the kinds of numbers that don't have any decimal points or fractions in them. They can be positive whole numbers like 5, 13, or 412. But they can also be negative whole numbers like -11 or -92. 0 also counts as an integer. Basically, if the number has no decimal part and no fractional part, it is considered an integer. On the other hand, fractions are used to describe parts of a whole number. We write them using two whole numbers. One number is written on top of the other with a line between them. The number on top is called the numerator, and the one below is called the denominator. For example, if you have the number 3 divided by 8, that is written as 3 over 8 and means you have taken a whole thing and divided it into 8 parts, and you have 3 of those parts. To put this into a more practical context, imagine you had a pizza and you cut it into 8 equal slices. That means the whole pizza has been divided into 8 parts. If someone comes along and eats 3 slices, then they've eaten 3/8 of the pizza. That leaves you with 5/8, because 5 out of the original 8 slices are still there. This simple pizza example helps you understand that fractions are just parts of a whole object or quantity, and they always involve two integers, one on top and one on the bottom. Now, let's talk about decimals. These are numbers that use a decimal point to show values that are less than 1. Terminating decimals are the ones that stop after a few digits. For instance, the number 0.5 has only one digit after the decimal point, which is 5. Another example is 0.625, which has 3 digits after the point, 6, 2, and 5, and then it ends. These are called terminating because they come to a stop. On the other hand, recurring decimals go on forever without ending, but they follow a repeated pattern. For example, 0.6666 continuing endlessly is a recurring decimal. Since writing out infinite sixes would take forever, we have a shorthand method. We put a dot above the digit that repeats. So for this one, you would just write 0.6 and place a small dot above the 6 to show it keeps repeating. For longer repeating patterns, like a decimal that goes 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 endlessly, we place dots above the first and last digits in the repeating section. So for that one, we put a dot above the 1 and another above the 3 to indicate the whole section repeats. If the repeating part is 4781 repeating over and over, we place a dot above the 4 and the 1. This helps clearly show what part of the number is repeating. An important thing to remember is that both terminating and recurring decimals are considered rational numbers, and that means we can also express them as fractions. For example, 0.5 is the same as 1 divided by 2, which we say as 1/2. 0.625 can be written as 5 divided by 8, or 5/8. If we take the recurring decimal 0.6 with a dot above the 6, that is equal to 2 divided by 3, which we say as 2/3. Similarly, 0.123 with a repeating pattern is the same as 123 divided by 999. Now we come to the more difficult category, irrational numbers. These are the numbers that go on forever after the decimal point, but never repeat in any kind of predictable pattern. They look completely random, and you can't find any repeating section no matter how far you go. A common type of irrational number is what we call surds, which are numbers that come from square roots of numbers that are not perfect squares. For example, the square root of 2 gives us something like 1.414213, and it keeps going without any repetition. Since 2 is not a perfect square, its square root cannot be simplified and becomes an irrational number. On the other hand, the square root of 9 is equal to 3, which is a clean whole number and therefore not irrational. Another well-known irrational number is the number pi, which is used frequently in maths and is also found on your calculator. It starts as 3.14159 and keeps going forever without any repeating pattern. This is one of the most famous examples of a number that cannot be written as a simple fraction or with an exact decimal value. So to wrap this all up, we can say that a rational number is any number that has a finite number of decimal places or has a repeating decimal pattern and can always be written as a fraction made from two integers. Irrational numbers, on the other hand, never repeat and never end, and they cannot be written neatly as a fraction. So whenever we want to write them down, we always have to round them to a certain number of digits because we can never capture their full value. That's everything for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful and it made the different types of numbers a bit clearer. If you did enjoy it, then be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.